Shalom, Israel, Shalom. Call Halal, Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai. Yahweh being the name of the Father, Yahweh Shai being the name of his only begotten Son. That being said, I want to get into it. Man, I just want to share this story because it really touched, and it just goes to show you a lot of things and the conditions that our people are in and how our people are not taking these things into consideration and how to start living our lives and how to start coming together and start doing what we're supposed to be doing, which is following these laws, statutes, and commandments. And this article in particular, for me, was very touching because it was very specific. I don't really share too many articles, but this one right here was just kind of took me back a little bit. So I decided I wanted to share it and read it for y'all. This is on the case of Crystal Kaiser, who was 16 when she had met so-called Randy Voller, who was an Edomite, is accused of murdering her alleged sex trafficker. She faces life in prison. I don't know how many of you are familiar with this story, or this case, but we gonna get into it. It says he was sexually abusing underage girls. Then police said one of them killed him. Okay, this is Kenosha, Wisconsin. Metal cuffs strained against her ankles as she shuffled down the courthouse hallway. She passed her mother, who had grown used to seeing her teen daughter in a jail uniform. Salakia. She passed the activist who saw her as a victim of child sex trafficking. She entered the courtroom where she was facing life in prison on charges of murdering her alleged sex trafficker. The court calls 18 CF 643, said the judge at this November hearing, State of Wisconsin versus Crystal Kaiser. Crystal looked up at him, then down at her hands. She sat between the public defenders assigned to her when she couldn't afford her own lawyer. Beside them was the district attorney, the lead prosecutor for the Kenosha County, a lakefront community of about 169,000 people between Milwaukee and Chicago. Both sides agreed to certain facts about what had brought them here. When Crystal was 16, she met a 33-year-old man named Randy Voller. Voller sexually abused Crystal multiple times. He filmed it. Damn devil. She wasn't the only one. And in February 2018, police arrested Voller on charges including child sexual assault. By then, they released him without bail. So they locked this dude up, knowing that he was involved in child sexual assault, and they let him go without bail. You have to understand, this is who these people are, man. This is why they can get away with all this stuff. Ain't no other man with color on his skin is getting out of a prison cell without bail. It's not happening. Let's continue reading. It says Voller, a white man, here we go, remained free for 3 months, even after police discovered evidence that he was abusing about a dozen underage black girls. Wow. Yeah, man, y'all gotta pay attention, man. And it's all black girls. They targeting a certain people. He remained free until Crystal, then 17, went to his house one night in June and allegedly shot him in the head twice. Judgment. She lit his body on fire, police said, and fled in his car. Man, this story gets deep. A few days later, she confessed. District Attorney Michael Gravely, whose office knew about the evidence against Voller but waited to prosecute him, charged Crystal with arson and first-degree intentional homicide, an offense that carries a mandatory life sentence in Wisconsin. So they let this dude who was sex trafficking females out on the loose so he can continue to do it. That's insane. And then now Gravely says he believes Crystal's crime was premeditated. The evidence, he argues, shows she planned to murder Voller so she could steal his BMW. These people are so petty, man. And just, yo, you Crystal, now 19, maintains she was defending herself, speaking publicly from jail for the first time. She said that when she told Voller she didn't want to have sex that night, he pinned her to the floor. I didn't intentionally try to do this, she said. Here's a picture of this damn devil. Look at him. Look, man, Eve. Her case comes at a time when police and prosecutors across the country are re-evaluating how victims of sex trafficking should be treated. They shouldn't be in sex trafficking to begin with. What are you talking about? This year, Tennessee released Centoya Brown, whose story went viral in the midst of the Me Too movement. She went to prison at age 16 and served 15 years for killing a man who purchased her for sex. It can't no other place be Babylon but here. Babylon and Sodom, spiritual Babylon and Sodom, right here. Here we have it. Brown's story, along with downfall of financier Jeffrey Epstein and singer R. Kelly, reveal what most child sex trafficking actually looks like in America. Vulnerable, there it goes right there, America, spiritual Sodom and Egypt. Vulnerable kids not kidnapped and held captive, not chained and smuggled across borders, but groomed by someone they trust and manipulated into believing they are the ones to blame for the abuse. Damn. Under federal law, all children who are bought or sold for sex are trafficking victims, regardless of the circumstances. 30 states and the district have stopped charging minors with prostitution. They stopped charging minors with prostitution. They don't care about our people, man. Most states also have a law that gives sex trafficking victims in an affirmative defense. If they can prove at trial they committed a crime because they were being trafficked, they can be acquitted of certain charges against them. Wisconsin is one of those states, and Crystal wanted to use that law to defend her actions. Despite prosecutors' certainty that her crime was premeditated, her lawyers argues she still has a complete defense to the charges. But the affirmative defense law has never been used in a homicide or any other violent crime. Not in Wisconsin, and as far as advocates know, not anywhere else. At this hearing, the judge was going to decide whether it could be. With handcuffs on her wrists, Crystal pulled at the rosary around her neck behind her. The courtroom was filled with her supporters and with members of Voller's family. Your Honor, her lawyer began, and Crystal listened closely as the men debated what she deserved. House is burning. Just after 5 a.m. on the morning of June 5th, 2018, a woman looked out the window of her Kenosha home and spotted flames on the roof of the tiny tan ranch house on the corner. She punched 911 into her phone. Fire, she told the dispatcher. House is burning. Do you know if anyone is in the house? The dispatcher asked. Within 2 minutes, Kenosha police arrived. They arrived real fast out there, huh? Inside, a badly charred body lay slumped on the ground. There were 2 gunshot wounds in his head. Dispatcher said that earlier that year, the house was involved in a call about a runaway child. Officers didn't yet know the details of that case, but it did give them a name for the homeowner, Randall Philip Voller III, who went by Randy, aka the damn devil the Bible speaks of. Police combed the house for evidence, alcohol bottles on the floor, a pizza box in the fridge, multiple hotel rooms keyed. Credit card records showed that the night before, he paid for an Uber from Milwaukee to his home. The Uber driver told police he had given a ride to a short black girl named Crystal. Neighbors reported that there was usually a BMW in Voller's driveway. The car was found abandoned in Milwaukee. A receipt inside led police to a Family Dollar store, where security footage revealed that 4 teens had driven the BMW. One of them said he had a sister named Crystal Kaiser. Police found her Facebook page. filled with photos of a slender girl who wore long, colorful wigs. On the night of a fire, she posted a selfie at 3:10 a.m. Behind her were curtains detectives recognized from Volar's house. The caption, "My mugshot." 3 days later, Crystal live streamed on Facebook. She talked about giving her brother a BMW. She showed off a gun. She told her 20-year-old boyfriend, Delaney Nelson, "I don't want to shoot anybody else." The next morning, police drove a battering ram into Nelson's front door. They found Crystal inside, a shower cap on her head. Zip ties were placed around her wrist as she was escorted into a squad car. Took her down real quick, huh? But for that pedophile, you let him out. Y'all sick, man. Her bail was set at $1 million. That dude ain't even have no bail. He came out. Man, that's just crazy. As they investigated Crystal, detectives were gathering information about Volar. He lived alone in the cramped 360 square foot one-bedroom house. He graduated from high school in 2001 and described himself as self-employed. He was a 5 foot 8 inch tall and about 200 pounds. His autopsy showed he had been born with missing fingers and toes and a right leg shorter than the left. This dude wasn't in, that comes from pedophilia, man. I'm telling you, man, this dude was an incest. He was like, man, oh man. His parents divorced in 2009 because they was probably mother or they was probably daughter and father. And 3 years later, Volar wore a suit and a red rose boutonniere to be the best man of his father, Randall P. Volar Jr., when he remarried at a golf resort. But most of what detectives needed to know was already sitting in police file. The runaway report mentioned by dispatchers was actually something much more serious, a sex crimes investigation that had been underway for months. They knew what was going on. They was just allowing it to happen. It began with another 911 call, this one just before 1 a.m. on February 12, 2018. According to police reports obtained by the Washington Post, a 15-year-old girl calling from Volar's house told dispatchers that a man had given her drugs and now he was going to kill her. Then she hung up. See that, and they do that. And then that's how girls go missing. They'll go and kill her. Officers found her wandering the streets wearing only a bra under an unzipped jacket. Her pupils were dilated. She said she had taken LSD. The girl eventually told police she met Volar the year before when he responded to an ad on Backpage.com. The site was on one of the country's largest prostitution marketplaces until it was shut down for involvement in human trafficking last year. The girl said Volar paid her $250 for sex the first time they met when she was 14, then $100 each time after that. She told police he knew how old she was because when he suggested to find women his own age, he elaborated on why he preferred the bodies of young girls like her. He's just a pedophile, man. In December 2017, the girl ran away from home and moved in with Volar. He gave her money, took her shopping, and even took her out to dinner with his mother, she said. This dude is sick. The girl showed signs of what sex crimes experts call trauma bonding. Volar was nice to her, she said, and she didn't want to get him in trouble. She called him her friend, quote unquote. She said Volar was sexually abusing other underage girls too and filming it. She's seen the videos. Damn demon. Sometimes he goes to Milwaukee to find young girls. The police report said she told detectives the first names of at least 3 of them, including one named Crystal. On February 22nd, police searched Volar's house. They confiscated laptops, hard drives, and memory cards, along with women's pajamas, bikini bottoms, and underwear. Volar was arrested. The charges: child enticement using a computer to facilitate a child sex crime and second-degree sexual assault of a child, a felony punishable by up to 40 years in state prison. Miriam Falk, a veteran sex crimes prosecutor in Wisconsin, said those charges typically lead to a substantial cash bail upward of 100,000 if the person involved is wealthy. If the person involved is wealthy, read the fine print. Pay attention, y'all. Add in video evidence, and this case would be a dream for prosecutors. That would be a very difficult case to defend, folks said. But on the same day police arrested Voller, they released him. Records indicate he paid no bail, but was told he would be summoned to court. The court summons never came. Voller spent $20,000 to hire a criminal defense attorney, but 3 months passed before police sent the case to the district attorney's office. The file showed what was found in Voller's house: hundreds of child pornography videos, featuring girls who appeared to be as young as 12 years old. Listen, and more than 20 home videos of Voller with underage black girls. Y'all, man, pay attention, man. This is serious. Still, Voller was not taken into custody. No sex crime case was entered into the Wisconsin court system. Wow, that's heavy. 12 days later, Voller was dead. The judgment of the Most High. You got to go, you damn demon. Kenosha police declined to comment for this story. Gravely, the district attorney said his office assigned a sex crimes prosecutor to the case who was working to determine the identities and ages of victims involved. It don't even matter. He's a damn demon. You should have had him in jail. In many and most of the cases, we didn't know the age, he said. So we literally did not know whether we had misdemeanors or felonies. They was all underage. It don't even matter. Like these people just try to find a play. Although police hadn't tracked down all the other girls in Voller's videos, they did describe most of them in their reports as mid-teens or early teens. Oh man. Investigators wrote that one appeared to be 13 or 14. Another they thought might be as young as 12. This is sick, man. Rachel Monaco Wilcox, who runs a legal clinic for human trafficking victims in Wisconsin, said police and prosecutors who are unfamiliar with these issues regularly fail to recognize that under federal law, there is no such thing as a child prostitute. Children, especially children of color, pay attention, are still seen as willing participants in the sale of sex. Children of color are still seen as willing participants in the sale of sex. And research shows black girls are routinely perceived as older and more sexually mature than their white peers. Wow, white peers. Investigators think my 14-year-old daughter would never do that. So there's no excuse. Monaco Wilcox said, "You damn devil." They knew what they were doing. They put themselves out there. This is just absurd. You hear how these people talk about us, and y'all people still y'all still want to be a part of these people and still want to attach y'all demons, man. And y'all don't want to come out. This is what they feel. This is clear. Yo, this is a specific and detailed post, man. I'm telling you. In the case against Voller, the lead investigator described the 15-year-old who ran from his house as prostituting herself out in his report. 15 years old, y'all, prostituting herself out. She knows no better. She still don't even know how to wipe her behind. This is crazy. After Voller was killed, homicide detectives quickly learned more about his activities. This gets deeper. On the day of his death, police received a call from TCF Bank, where most of Voller's money, $800,000 in assets, was housed. Prosecutors would later say that Voller's funds came from legal trading in cryptocurrency. The bank police reports show suspected something else was going on. They suspected something else was going on. A bank official called the police to flag that between November 2017 and May 2018, Voller had almost 1.5 million in transfers in a pattern of activity the bank associated with human trafficking. Oh, this dude was heavy. Confused, the detectives who took the call asked whether someone from his department had called the bank to request this information. No, the bank official said. He was just making a cold call. According to the police report, he had no idea Voller was dead. Days later, the detective opened Voller's file. The videos taken from his home had been edited into still images showing his victims' faces. The detective started flipping through the pictures, searching for one face in particular. And then he found it. There was Crystal Kauser, her arms wrapped around her body, smiling at the camera. Man, this is crazy. Look, man, this is Judah right here, man. That's Israel, man. That's 16 months later, Crystal was looking into another camera, this time from inside the Kenosha County Jail. A phone was pressed to her ear. "Hey," she said, and so began each call to reporter through the jail's video visit system. In more than 5 hours of calls, Crystal shared her story of what happened with Randy Voller, which began not in Wisconsin, but in Gary, Indiana, where she was born. Her mom, DeVore Taylor, was 16 when she had Crystal. Taylor took jobs at fast food joints to support her daughter, or burgeoning artist. Crystal was delighted by watching cartoons and even more entertained by drawing worlds of her own. For junior high, she earned a spot in Gary's Performing Arts Academy. She chose orchestra as her specialty. Taylor couldn't afford a violin. By then, she had 3 more children and a boyfriend to support. A boyfriend to support. So she put $100 down and paid a little at a time. While Taylor took classes at night, Crystal started practicing at all hours, trying to learn Beethoven and Silent Night. Damn, man. Even now, Crystal describes herself by talking about her music. "I'm a violinist," she said. "Some instruments like the guitar, my hand is too little for the board, so I like instruments that I can play." But while she learned the violin, Crystal's childhood started to unravel as her mom's boyfriend turned more and more violent. Taylor never thought he would hurt her kids. Crystal remembered differently. "We would get in trouble and he would take it too far and do extra," she said. There you go, wilding out, man. These are the curses, man. Crystal learned to guide her brother and 2 sisters into their bedroom, close the door, and wait for her mom to say she could call the police. They would just take him and tell him to leave, Crystal recalled, but he would always come back. At the end of 2015, Taylor and the kids left almost all their belongings in Indiana and moved to Milwaukee. They stayed at a Salvation Army shelter for months before they found an apartment. While Taylor was working at Denny's, her son started stealing cars. Crystal started skipping school and hanging with Delaney Nelson, who was 3 years older than her. And this is the system. This is what the system is supposed to do, right? The system is supposed to do this. You know, that this is the programming. This is how you break up the family. Just notice how the system just broke up the whole family, you know, and how this works, and how this is a huge lesson for everybody, for all of us, right? She just lost all the attention of her kids, both of them. Let's continue reading. Soon Crystal and Nelson were physically fighting. Once a witness saw Nelson holding Crystal in a headlock and striking her with a stick more than 10 times while dragging her through the parking lot. Nelson, who did not respond to requests for comment, pleaded guilty to a charge of battery. Crystal stayed with him. See, and these are the things that are being passed down to our children. This is the cycle. She's just going through the same thing her mom just went through. And she's staying with the dude, you know, like in the fall of 2016, she met someone who told her she deserved better. Randy Voller, the damn devil, the snake, the serpent in the... Crystal said she met Voller at a bus stop. Later, she confessed she met him after he responded to an advertisement she had posted on Backpage.com. She needed money for her snacks and school notebooks, she said, and a girl she knew showed her how to use the site. Voller was the first to respond. She was 16, but she told him she was 19. And this is, man, our people being destroyed, man. This is how this... We gotta pay attention, man, how we raise our kids, man, how to guide them. She said, at first I was nervous, she said, and then I told him okay. Before long, she was seeing Voller every other week. She said he was always complimenting her brown eyes, her colorful wigs, her 104-pound body. He took her on dates and let her order steak. He bought her a heart-shaped locket, got her a phone, and let her drive his cars. She didn't need to post on Backpage.com again. He took her shopping and gave her cash she could share with her sisters, sometimes $500 at a time. She made excuses to Nelson and her mom about where the gifts were coming from. She knew what Voller expected in return, but she didn't think it was wrong. He was the only friend that I actually had, she said. Man, she feels so lost, man. She is sure Voller knew her real age because the summer of 2017, he invited her to his house to celebrate her 17th birthday. He knew what he was doing. Damn devil, man, taking advantage. He had bought me cupcakes, Crystal recalled, and he had gave me his new drug I had never heard about called acid. It made me feel weird. A few weeks later, Crystal was arrested. Milwaukee police said she was driving a car that her brother had reportedly stolen when they tried to pull her over. According to police, she sped away, then ran. She was charged with fleeing an officer in Wisconsin. 17 years old are charged as adults. Dang, man. After 55 days in jail, her bond was reduced to $400. Voller paid it. Of course, the damn snake comes and slithers his way in again. Crystal said he made clear what specific sex acts he wanted in return. Damn, man. I told him that I never wanted to do that, Crystal said. He said that I had to owe him that. She began to try to cut Voller out of her life. To her mother's dismay, she had moved in with Nelson. Crystal said she told Voller she wanted to get serious with Nelson, so she couldn't see him anymore. He had started to talk violent and stuff. She said, I was going to stop talking to him, and he said if I did that, he was going to kill me. She never confided in anyone. She didn't call the police. They didn't help my mom, she explained. Well, of course, she's seen this movie before. She knows what goes on. They're not going to do nothing for her. They on his team. Crystal said she didn't know about the other girls, Voller's arrest, or the videos confiscated by police. She said she didn't know Voller filmed her. Look at him. Damn devil. Red devil. Esau. Edomite. Look. Got our Eve out here all jacked up, man. Eventually, those videos and the sex crimes filed on Voller would be shared with Crystal's lawyer, who came to believe Voller's involvement in sex trafficking went beyond just buying sex. Voller used cryptocurrency and anonymous browsers to access the dark web, tools popular with distributors of child pornography. In the videos Voller made, Crystal's lawyer told the judge he describes himself as an escort trainer. He instructs one girl, the lawyer said, on what she could do to keep body parts of hers in working order to be a better prostitute. In another video, Voller tells a girl, do you want to post to Kanasha Rasheen and see if anybody calls you and I'll give you a ride? Only after multiple interviews with the Post did Crystal describe quietly what that meant. Voller, she said, sold her through Backpage.com to other people. She said he would post ads, then drive her to hotels in Milwaukee, where men his age or older would spend 30 minutes with her. She gave Voller the money she earned. Sometimes she said Voller would arrange for her to meet more than one man in a day. That's heavy, man. He told me to get the money first and then text him once I was finished, she said. Once talkative and smiling during interviews, Crystal grew more and more upset as she spoke. To most questions she answered, I don't know. She did not know the hotel names or how much the men paid. She did not know when it started or how many times it happened. She said she did not know how it made her feel, but she did know why she kept doing it. Because he was a grown-up and I wasn't, she said, so I listened. In May 2018, Crystal's boyfriend started to grow suspicious. Nelson told Crystal and later the police that he thought someone might be following her. He bought her a .380 pistol and taught her to shoot it in his backyard. He told her to carry it everywhere. Bro, this right here is the perfect storm. It's all about to go down. You just gave her a gun now and taught her how to shoot it. We know what's going to happen. On June 4th, she appeared in Milwaukee court to plead guilty to the fleeing charge she had picked up nearly a year earlier. She said Nelson went with her, and by the afternoon, they were fighting. Worried he would hit her again, Crystal said she texted Voller to ask whether she could come over. At 8:42 p.m., an Uber picked her up. The pistol, she said, was in her purse. I had went into the house. He had ordered some pizza. We were smoking and he asked me if I wanted to drink any liquor. And then he had gave me this drug. I don't know what it's called. And after that, we started to watch movies. And then the drug, it made me feel weird or whatever. She said Voller came to sit next to her. He started to touch my leg and then I had jumped and tell him that I didn't want to do that. I just thought that I didn't want to do that stuff anymore because I was trying to change, she said. Voller, Crystal recalled, told her what she owed him. I tried to get up to get away from him, but I had tripped and I fell on the floor and he had got on top of me, she said. And he was trying to rip my pants off, my jeans that I had on. I was wiggling because once me and Nelson had fought, he had tried to pin me down, but I wiggled to get loose. She doesn't remember going to get the pistol. She does remember the sound that it made, like a pop, a high pop, she said. I started to panic. That's the crime scene, y'all, right there. This was a different story than what she initially told detectives. On the day she was arrested, Crystal said she didn't know Voller. Then she said she saw another woman shoot him. Months later, she would tell police that Nelson had been the one to kill him. She'd been so confused with these drugs. She's traumatized. She don't know which way is up or down. Of course, she's telling you different stories. But eventually, during her first interview with detectives, she confessed. She told them she was tired of Voller touching her. Kaiser said that she watches the show Criminal Minds. And she decided to make a fire. An account of the interview states Kaiser said she poured red liquor everywhere, grabbed tissue or toilet paper, and started the fire. Crystal says she doesn't remember the fire. She said Voller was planning to give her a laptop and a new car for her 18th birthday, and that's why she took them. She said she lied to detectives at first because she was scared. But she knows a jury will examine those actions when they ask the central question about what happened between Crystal and Voller. Who was the real victim? To Crystal, the answer is clear. Both of us, she said, because of the stuff that he was doing to me and that he should have never died. Yes, he should have. And he was not a victim. He got judgment. You were the victim. Sis, come on, man. Look, while Crystal was sitting in jail this fall, someone in a story much like hers was walking free. Centoya Brown was 16 years old when the man she believed to be her boyfriend started selling her for sex. First, just to his friends. Then she told herself she was just pretending to be a prostitute. Before long, she spent each day hoping that if she could just bring in enough money, he let her stop. She never called it sex trafficking. I thought it was okay for me to be with an adult man. Brown, now 31, said in an interview, I didn't think I was being taken advantage of. It never crossed my mind that I didn't have the capacity to consent. On a summer night in 2004, a 43-year-old picked up Brown at a Sonic drive-in and took her to his Nashville home. A .40 caliber handgun was in her purse. Prosecutors argued that she wanted to rob him. Brown says she feared for her life when she shot him in the back of his head. She stole 2 guns and cash from his home and fled in his truck. She was sentenced to life in prison, but 13 years later, in the midst of 2017's Me Too movement, Brown's story went viral. Rihanna, Kim Kardashian, and thousands of others spread the word about the campaign to free Centoya Brown. By then, there was a growing movement against sex trafficking. Advocates armed with research on brain development, racial bias, and the impacts of trauma were working to educate police officers, judges, and prosecutors, including Preston Shipp, one of the attorneys who argued that Brown should spend her life in prison. Wow. Shipp was so moved by what he learned, he testified on Brown's behalf at her clemency hearing. 4 months ago, she was released. But other child trafficking victims involved in violent crimes are still behind bars. Some have been there for decades. For many, the abuse they experienced was never brought up in the court, or it was dismissed as irrelevant, making it impossible to know the number of cases that exist across the country. Man, listen, watch this. They were sex trafficked as a teenagers. They were involved in a murder. Some have spent decades in prison. Some are walking free. Barbara Hernandez, 16. You know this Ephraim right here, probably. Life without the possibility of parole. 45, still in prison. Hernandez has been in prison for nearly 3 decades for her involvement in a robbery that led to death of a 28-year-old James Codeling. Hernandez was being trafficked, and it was her alleged sex trafficker who killed Codeling while she was in another room, but prosecutors argued she bought the knife and led Codeling to the attack. At a resentencing hearing this year, a judge ruled against Hernandez. If she does not win her appeals, she will remain behind bars for the rest of her life. That's crazy. She didn't even kill the dude. She wasn't even in the same room. That's berserk. That's crazy. At least 35 states have passed affirmative defensive laws which allow victims to try to prove in court that their crime occurred because of the abuse they experienced. Most of those laws only apply to prostitution charges. Some can be used for other crimes traffickers often force their victims to commit, such as truancy, theft, and drug possession. That's just crazy. But in a few states, including Wisconsin, the affirmative defense law is broad. It doesn't specify which crimes the defense can be used for. A victim of a violation of trafficking has an affirmative defense. The Wisconsin law states for any offense committed as a direct result of the violation of trafficking, without regard to whether anyone was prosecuted or convicted for the violation of trafficking. In the years since the law was enacted in 2008, it has been used by lawyers seeking plea deals for clients charged with prostitution. But neither side in Crystal's case could find an instance in which the law was used as a defense in court, because there was no precedent set on that. With no other cases serve as a precedent, there you go, and no further clarification written in the law, the judge in Crystal's case would be the first to decide which crimes the affirmative defense can apply to and whether that includes violent crimes. Siding with Crystal could open a door for other trafficking victims prosecuted in Wisconsin and fuel the creation of new affirmative defense laws across the country. And it would give Crystal's lawyer the chance to try to convince a jury that even if she killed a man, she deserved to go free. Absolutely, without a questionable doubt. The true story. Judge David P. Wilk peered down from his bench at Crystal. He'd seen her in court 8 times now. Her mother and the activist sat behind the Voller family. Aunts, a grandmother, Voller's mother, Diana, and seated closest to Crystal, his father, Randall P.J. Voller Jr. The family declined to be interviewed for this story. Yeah, I bet. The true story has yet to be told, Voller's father said in statement. True stories already is told. And when the truth comes out, I hope people's perception of my son will change. My son was a good man. Here we go. The damn devils, man. Loved by his family and respected for his kindness and intelligence. We all missed him dearly and would do anything to turn back the hands of time so we could be with him. Yeah, so you could do it all over again, probably worse. What happened is a tragedy for both families, the Kaisers and Voller. No, it's not. You guys probably celebrate that. At the hearing, prosecutors once again argued that the true story was a calculated attack that ended a man's life and endangered the lives of his neighbors. We know, Gravely told the judge, that the pre-planning predates the incident. Oh man, this is just nuts. His court filing showed that a few days before the crime, Crystal sent a Facebook message to a friend saying, "I'm finna get a BMW." Her friend asked when. Crystal replied, "Soon." And then Gravely said, "There is a real-time communication. She is a child, free Crystal." The night of the crime, according to prosecutors, Crystal was texting 2 people about where the key to the car was and that she had learned how to start it. At 10:42 p.m., she texted, "When you want me to do it, babe?" At 11:09 p.m., "None, but I'm finna do it right now though." 11:13 p.m., "I'm finna do it." 12:03 a.m., "Just order some pizza, I'ma wait. It's just gonna splatter everywhere. I looked it up on Google and it's a pillow. I'ma wait until she asleep." As Gravely spoke about the text, Voller's mother began to cry. His father set his head in his hands. Crystal's expressions changed by the minute. A blank stare, a forehead scrunched, her eyes wide and staring at her lawyer, Carl Johnson, waiting for him to interject. "He ain't saving you. He leading you right into hell." Compared with Gravely's booming confidence, Johnson sounded quiet and cautious. He took long pauses to review his notes. Crystal's case was one of more than a dozen he was overseeing. Take notice to the words that they use. Johnson didn't address whether the crime was premeditated. That's what he was supposed to be addressing because that's what they was accusing her of, premeditated. This is crazy. The broadness of the affirmative defense law, he argued, means Crystal has a complete defense to the charges. So like she was justified. If the judge agreed with him, it would be up to a jury to decide whether her crimes were a direct result of being trafficked. She wasn't. With all the evidence, if Wilkes said the affirmative defense didn't apply to cases like hers, Johnson would have to come up with an entirely new strategy for defending Crystal. She sat beside him, still pulling at her rosary while trying to read his notes. "The court," Wilkes said after 40 minutes, "is not going to rule today. The court is going to come back in approximately 30 days. Crystal stood and turned toward her mom. Then she shuffled across the room, out of the courthouse, and back to her cell. Little kids. Little kids? Question mark. 2 hours later, Crystal's mom thanked the activists who drove her to and from Kenosha and climbed out of their car. Taylor, 36, didn't like asking for their help, but her truck was broken, and court was the only time she could see Crystal in person. Inside her Milwaukee apartment, Taylor looked at the notes she had taken that day. At the bottom of the page, she'd written affirmative defense, fine statute. For a year and a half, she'd been going over it all in her head. Why hadn't she stopped Crystal from going to live with her boyfriend? Why hadn't she asked more questions about those new clothes? She reminded herself that she had 3 other kids, worked long hours, and moved to Milwaukee to survive. Only sometimes did it make her feel any better. Here, Crystal was everywhere. Photos of her taped to the walls, her violin in the storage, gathering dust, a box of belongings from the women's prison, where Crystal served 9 months this year for her fleeing charge, stashed where Taylor wouldn't have to look at it. When Crystal finished that sentence in September, she was transferred back to the county jail in Kenosha to await her murder trial. She couldn't bring her possessions with her, so they were sent to Taylor. That evening, for the first time, Taylor started to go through the box. Beneath drawings and coloring books, she found a leather-bound Bible. Inside was a list titled, My Goals. Finish high school. Crystal had written, gain 20 to 25 pounds. Get out and do better. Dito. Beneath the Bible, Taylor found a large yellow envelope. Inside was a stack of documents and a letter from Crystal's lawyer. Dear Miss Kaiser, please find enclosed the materials you requested. It said they include the police reports from the investigation into Mr. Voller. Taylor flipped to the next page, and the next. Here was the search warrant for Voller's property, a list of all the computers and DVDs and flash drives taken from his house. But I looked up his arrest records, Taylor said, and this was not on there. She started to read what was on one flash drive. After a moment, she had to wipe tears from her eyes so she could see the page. She started to read out loud, her voice crackling. If you guys go on the page, I think these are the video clips, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not too sure, but we're going to continue reading. Numerous home videos recorded by the suspect of him having sex with numerous females. Most appeared to be in their teenage years, from 14 to 17 years old. Not just teenagers. We talking about, or females. We talking about black girls, little so-called black women, so-called black queen. Man, this dude is disgusting. She kept flipping, and then she was shouting, 12? Come on, man. 12 years old, little kids. They ain't even in their teens. She turned to another page, listening to the child sexual assault charges against Voller. So why, she yelled, are we here? There were dozens more pages, and on one, she saw a copy of a photo. It was a still image from a video. Taylor started flipping through the pictures, searching for one face in particular, and then she found it. There was her daughter, her arms wrapped around her body, smiling at the camera. In December, Crystal went before the judge again. The court, Wilk announced, is satisfied that a blanket affirmative defense to all acts leads to an absurd result. Wow. He decided Crystal did not have access to the affirmative defense law for trafficking victims. In this view, neither would other trafficking victims charged with violent crimes. Johnson plans to appeal the ruling, a process that could delay the jury trial for months. Crystal returned to the jail, where she's still trying to figure out how to pass the time. Sleeping gives her night terrors. Seeing a counselor makes her agitated. Calling home only works when her mom can pay to answer the calls. Drawing, Crystal says, is what makes her feel like herself. This fall, she spent weeks working on a board game on her own creation with a colorful winding road like the one in Candyland. She called it Jailland. With two friends, Crystal molded and colored dried toothpaste into game pieces shaped like a book, a pack of cigarettes, and a bag of money. As the pieces moved down the road, they met opportunities and obstacles. Church, Alcoholics Anonymous, a padded cell, chance cards let a player jump forward or sent them to the hole. Players who made it to the end of the road went free. Each time Crystal played the game, she made sure she reached the end. For weeks, she kept working to make the board more colorful, adding more pieces and trying to find other inmates who wanted to play. And then she was moved to another unit. Almost all her belongings, she said, were thrown away or left behind. She hasn't bothered drawing the game up again. Instead, she uses her small supply of paper to send letters to her supporters, including a 29-year-old white man who read about her case and wrote to her from another Wisconsin prison. When you read automatically a white man, this is not good. Their letters have become so frequent that Crystal has started calling him her boyfriend. She has not learned. Family, this is the cycle, man. This is crazy. She knows he is serving time for the charge he pleaded guilty to in 2011, child enticement. This is the same thing. This is why this story just is so bugged out, man. Listen, he told her the crime was the result of a misunderstanding, so-called, but he pleaded guilty to it. So what was the misunderstanding if you pled guilty to it? He is scheduled to be released next year, but will remain a registered sex offender. Crystal says he is going to marry her. Oh my goodness, man. This is the end of the article. This is how it all ends. Right back to the white man and the system. And oh my goodness. And I mean, and I'm not saying it. It says it right here. 29-year-old white man. They telling you. So-called white man. You know that's East. The Bible speaks of. Man, anyway, man, I just wanted to share this article with y'all because, this is how lost our people are. And this is a perfect example. And this is like the perfect storm of how things start to go south. Absolutely. When they start to infiltrate your family, they start to separate you from within. You understand? So we got to start to be strong, and we got to start to guide ourselves, and we got to start to be responsive to our responsibilities to teach our children, and as men to start leading our women, into a better guidance. Because if you've seen that everything started going all south when old boyfriend was, beating Mom Dukes up, and that sets a trend. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, y'all read it. Y'all read it with me, man. It's real. It's real. Our people are losing their lives because of this. Shalom.